Cool. All right. So this webinar is all about preparing for your end of month in Console Cloud and how to move and prepare for that successfully. We will walk through a couple of preparation sort of things, and then I'll jump into Cloud and we'll go through the process of closing and some of those really important things that we really recommend that you consider. So it is myself today, but also joining Natasha, who's our Head of Customer Success, if I can talk properly. So she's jumped on the line.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Thanks for joining, Tash, as well. So in today's session, we're going to talk about what end of month means in Console Cloud, when you should close your month. Obviously, this will depend on your state and your legislation, and if you're in Australia or New Zealand. Owner statements and settings. I always think it's an opportunistic time to run through some of the owner statements and settings so that when we are setting these up before we actually go ahead and close our month, so when our owners receive those statements, they look how we want them to look. And then we go through a little bit of an end of month preparation checklist, and then we'll go through Cloud and close the month, and we'll go through that process. Again, any questions, please do interrupt me or pop them in. As I said, it's a smaller group, so we'll have a bit more time than usual. So what does the end of month mean in Console Cloud? Let me just, sorry, everyone. Go to the escape. There we go. So basically, put simply, I know this is pretty straightforward, but so put simply, it's the end of month process is to finalize everything before we send out our owner statement. So that's the real key here as well. Like I said before, for our newer clients, so that's new to Console Cloud, the process is somewhat different. However, I guess the light at the end of that tunnel, it is a lot quicker as well. So there's no disbursement wizards or end of month wizards and things like that. It's really about getting everything in check so that we can actually process that month and then not have to worry about it after that point. Where are we? Losing my mouse today. It's going all over my other screen. Then I lost it. There we go. Must be a Friday thing. I had the same thing in the previous webinar as well, so my apologies. So why is closing the month? Again, so it enables the business to generate accurate and consistent financial statements and reports. We do it every month, especially in real estate, so it's a really, really common practice. And again, we're trying to make this process easier for you in Cloud. It also helps, this key point as well, it also helps early identification of any accounting or bank relating issues rather than at the end of the year. So we don't want to leave it all right to the end of the year, especially for those that are not doing end of months, and then have all these end of months sitting there and all these, problems that accumulate over time. It'll help you a lot, obviously, doing this correctly when we come to end of financial year, which I'll touch on in a sec as well, just for those that are moved from Gateway. Of course, let's click. All right. When should you close? So I like to reiterate this as well. Again, check with your legislation in your state. It's your usual process to this. So this is stuff really you'd be doing now, unless you're brand new to real estate, it's your first time. But obviously, it doesn't matter what system you're using. So it is recommended that you do it between the 1st and the 5th of the new month. And I know, speaking from Queensland, that's certainly the case here. And I know Western Australia, for example, it's a little bit longer than that. But obviously, the longer you leave it, the more we're receding following it, coming into the next month and that sort of stuff. Just to note, on the end of the close of month button will only appear on the 1st of the following month. So that's when you can start to process it in. Sorry, one thing I didn't mention as well is disbursements, which I'll run through them as well because there's a little bit things about that. Disbursements are obviously really important. It's the last disbursement that we do before we close our month, but you can also disperse at any time. So there's no time limit or amount limit. You can disperse your funds. That can be done at any stage, at any time. But preferably what you do is you do your last disbursement before you close that month so that we can make sure all those transactions and all those not financial year statements, the owner statements, that's right, will appear as they should. All right, so let's have a look at some of the owner statement settings. And these are really key as well. So I'd recommend these. And we'll have a look at also one of my statements. I've prepared one earlier just so you can get a little bit of a view if you've never seen them before. What that might look like. So over in Console Cloud, We're going to have a look at the statement settings first. So in your settings and banking, and down to your owner statement settings. So these statements here will determine how your owner statements are displayed and what is produced as well. These options at this stage are global options, so it's on or off for all. And hopefully later down the track we'll be able to enable that so we can do that for specific owners, but at the moment it is on or off. So the first one, consolidate statements. I'll just sort of run through these quickly. There might prompt some questions as well and some of your memories. So consolidated statements, so this combines the same owner or multiple property owners into one statement per owner. Apologies for the siren in the background, it's just an ambulance going past. And over on the right hand side, so if that's off, you won't see that ungroup fees. So over on the right hand side, if that is on, obviously we do have the option to ungroup our fees. So this will really set out how it's displayed and how we want that to appear. Zero activity statements. So zero activity means there's a little thing in the disbursements that says zero balance. It is different. Zero activity means there's been no rent received, there's been no action on this property. So it might be sitting there with no one renting or anything like that. So you do have the option, again, to produce statements. There'll be zero statements, but for those owners, again, completely up to you. One income line per property. So this is grouping income, in particular rent dissections and other things, into one line item. So if you prefer that they are separated, then turn that off. If you prefer that they're in one line item, which mine are, which I'll show you in a sec, then certainly leave that on, which is pretty common. GST columns, again, if you want to show or not show GST. And I'll come back to the end of financial year because I know we'll mention that in a sec, but we'll just talk to a couple more options. So the delivery option, you might notice it's grayed out as well. It must be the peak hour on the train line. Apologies, I didn't close my window. So delivery options is when your statements are sent to your owners. So I've got this one sent at each time I disperse. So that means it'll send a statement to my owner. Traditionally, you might have it set to the end of month, which means it'll only send those owner statements at the end of the month. So it's completely up to you. If you do want to change this option, so you will see it grayed out, what you'll need to do is change it immediately after you close a month. So that means basically, as soon as I've closed that month, I can come in here and these options will be available. And the reason for that is so that it doesn't have overlapping statements. So you're not sending owners things where, you know, you've got a statement that was sent at disbursement, which is half the month, and then you've done or 3/4 of the month, you've done your end of month, which repeats 3/4 of what that says plus, so they might get confused. So that's the reason it's only allowed to be changed after the close of month, so that doesn't confuse your owners. Little one down here as well, ABA lodgement reference. So this is the reference on the statement and also in your ABA file. And how that appears. So you've got property address, property reference, and generic lodgement. In a financial year, I know it's end of month, but always a good point to sort of talk about this as well. So your end of financial year coming from Gateway, super important. External financials, what that means is it'll include your transactions. You're not able to edit them or anything like that, but we can add an offset and that sort of stuff. So it'll include those transactions for that current financial year. So let's say you moved to you moved to Cloud last month, and then we come to the end of financial year next year. What that's going to produce from Cloud is your one statement, if you have this turned on, which will include all your Gateway transactions for that owner, but also all the current transactions in Console Cloud. So it's not two statements, it potentially is one statement as well. So we'll talk to that in another webinar closer to the end of financial year. Right, any questions on that? Just pop them in, or you're welcome to interrupt me. I'll run over to my next thing. Oops. Oh, sorry, I'm clicking the change button. I'm going back to my, there we go. Oh, what we didn't do, and I'll open that up now, sorry, is look at a statement. So let's look at a statement, just a quick just a quick statement, and then we're going to talk about disbursements as well, because that's another super important step. And of course, it's really key when we're talking about end of month and stuff like that. So one of my statements, where did I have that statement? My apology, here it is. I've got a link to it. It should open. There we go. You can see I've been putting notes and stuff like that in there. Let's try, I think it was the 15th of 7th. Anyway, doesn't matter, we'll choose one of these ones. Just be aware though, these statements that I'm looking at are in a non-transacting office and a demo office, so they can look quite messy. So don't be alarmed by what you're seeing in my statements. And that purely is because I'm not receiving rent regularly. So you'll see odd rent amounts and things like that. So just to sort of note there, some people look at my statements and go, oh, that's, you know, looks like I'm doing a really bad job, but it's really just me reusing same owners. So what you're seeing up here, so obviously all this stuff on the right, top right-hand side is all the key stuff. So statement numbers, the statement periods, super important. Again, the odd number, the odd periods for mine is because obviously I'm doing it at disbursement, but also because it's a practice account. The property, current tenancy, when they're paid to, so they'll always have that up there for your owner. Income, so any income, any GSTs if applicable, obviously not with rent. In the income section, there should have been with invoice, but anyway, so you can see credits in there, and then we'll scroll down to expenses. So obviously you've got a few water bills, sewage bills and things like that. All my fees will show up in here. There's GST amounts, there's debit amounts. So it's really identifying what that is. Dissections is also something I wanted to talk about quickly as well, because setting these up correctly, especially when you're newer, will also determine how your owner statement. So I'll talk to that in a sec. What you're seeing basically on these statements will be assigned to a dissection or an account code. So similar if you were using Gateway, dissections were in there as well, so you'd be familiar with that. So you can see here all my expenses, obviously payments to owner, and there's the calculation there, quite straightforward. And of course, any bills that we've paid. So these bills, as long as you've attached them via the bills screen in Cloud, they'll appear on the owner's statement. So they'll get the copy of the bill at the bottom of all their statements. You can see I've got a couple of bills, water, urban utilities, and a few repeat things in there that I've used over and over again. This was a one owner. I think this was, yeah, it's a one owner one property owner. Does that make sense? Yeah, an owner that had one property, sorry. If it was multiple properties, obviously that would display here. We'll display the property name under line item under income, and it would show the income for that. And then again, it would show the next property and so on. So just FYI. That, let's pop back over in here. I'll talk to dissections before. So dissections, traditionally you would have done these when you move to Cloud. They'll come across if you're using Gateway. So a lot of these we're already pretty familiar with, but it's another sort of good housekeeping or checkpoint as well before end of month, especially if you're doing your first or second or third end of month, but also review some of these dissections. So what these are is obviously your account codes, and when you're paying bills, you're receiving rent, doing all that sort of stuff. These will be assigned to a dissection, and that dissection name, let's take expenses for example. So we're doing a council, our water or our rates and whatnot, that will appear on our owner statement. So this will be all the transactions that were assigned to rates, so that our owner can clearly see that there's been this many expenses for rates. GST is included in that dissection, and they can do their tax based on that. So it's a lot of this is it's important to sort of review this as well. Let's go to disbursements. Cool. So in disbursements, and again, a lot of people will be doing more than one disbursement per month now. I think traditionally, a lot more agencies were only doing that one disbursement for their end of month, or they might be doing a mid-month and whatnot. A couple of really important points when you're doing your disbursements, even if you are doing it whenever. Obviously, you can do it every minute if you really are that, technically you could do it every minute if you wanted to, but obviously in reality we're probably not doing that. You can do it usually. What's the filter? So in disbursements, key thing in here when you're doing disbursements for certain owners with certain frequencies, the really key part is to always select that filter first, so that it does include in this list the right owners. And if I don't do that, so let's say, for example, I go here, I want to go and disperse my owners. I come in here in a rush, I tick this box here, and then I see down the bottom, there's 85 owners, and I go, oh, that seems like a lot for my weekly disbursement. If I click on filters, go week, it won't actually deselect. Oh, it did a couple, but that's okay. It won't actually deselect all of these owners. So it is really, really important, and there's many tips, support, give our customers as well, to always come in here and select filters first, so that you are essentially selecting the right disbursement. So let's say we might do our monthly here. We might have already done our mid-month, obviously in the middle of the month. We might be doing our end of month, last disbursement. Now when I select, so if I do the filters first and then select, now it's only showing the correct amount of 60. So the potential, I guess that is really important, because the potential is you can obviously disperse owners when you didn't actually want to disperse owners. So don't forget that. So we'll run through and do this in a sec. I'll just leave them ticked. Another really cool thing on here is the withheld in here. So if you do have owner withholds, you're at disbursement, you think, oh, I forgot to put a withheld on for this owner. They've got a new hot water system coming in next week, and we'll need to keep some money from rent to pay for that. You can actually do that at this. So traditionally you could do it in the owner's screen, but now you can do it in the disbursement screen by clicking there and then withholding. So let's say, well, it's not going to cost 100. That's a cheap hot water system. About 800 and 1,000 bucks, depending how big it is. You might have seen also, sorry, I skipped over that, until next disbursement. So that's an optional, so we can turn it off automatically, or you can leave it manual if you don't know when that bill's actually coming in. So it just keeps holding that money. So we're not accidentally dispersing to the owner and then going, oh, hey, you need to pay that water bill. Can you please put money back in our trust account? So it's another step in there. One little thing on the owners, obviously this do not disperse zero balances, so that's not creating statements or dispersing those that have no money, so these ones here. So that's important not to use that if you do manage commercial. So this is not a commercial function, so don't turn that on. Down the bottom, this is an optional tool. So some agents live by this tool. It's a really, really helpful tool. But again, it doesn't stop you from disbursing. So it's completely up to you. I just like to show it because it is a really cool tool. So down the bottom, in our drop-down list, we have a preview option. And that preview option, what it does is it takes you to another screen, doesn't take you away from your disbursements. It just moves you to this screen where it will display all your disbursements one by one and in detail. So if you have a lot of disbursements and you might have a lot of moving parts, it's a great little tool. Yeah, it might be a little bit more work, but it might pay off in the end. So what you can do here is I can look at here and go, yep, this one's fine. So you don't have to use this for approved, but I'll show you how these work as well. This will allow you then to filter by approved and reject disbursements. So I'll approve a couple, just as an example. Obviously, I'm checking these as I should be. What's this one? I might reject this one. So it's not going to stop it from dispersing if I don't want it to, but I'm going to reject it so then I know. And just a note on that as well, PMs can access this as well if you turn it on in the users. So what I mean by that is your property managers can come in here and help the trust account and say, oh, this one doesn't look right. I know there's a couple of bills that are not in there. or these ones are not actually for that owner. So I can put some notes in here and go, correct, or something like that. I'll use that as my example. The reason we put comments in, you'll see in a sec. I'll just put reject in there. We'll go back over here. So we'll close out of here. I'm not going to continue on and do the rest. And what we're going to see, so you'll notice there's some little green ticks and stuff like that. Just use my rows to extend it. Obviously, we didn't put it on all owners. The one I really want to show you is the reject one. So you can hover over this and it'll say, the plumbing bill is not correct. So your trust account or whoever's doing your disbursement might come in here and go, oh, okay, well, I need to go back and check that one. So I won't actually disperse. So I'll make sure that I definitely don't tick that one and disperse until we've rectified that. We can obviously do another disbursement. So it's a great little checkpoint tool. If you are using it, you do have another filter in here. So in your filters down the bottom, you've got some filters down here. But the really key one with that feature is the approved, rejected, or not reviewed. So I could go in here and go, oh, I only want to filter, obviously, my monthly people, owners, but I also want to filter on top of that only the ones that I've approved to be dispersed. So it's only showing me these ones. The rest I'm going to leave because I know we need to check them and we need to continue on. So I might tick that. And again, I know I keep saying it, but I just want to stress that you don't have to use this option. This won't stop you from dispersing. They're purely just a tool to identify checkpoints as well. So I know there's people that don't use it, but completely up to you. Again, disbursements, we want to do a full disbursement. Obviously, tick all those owners, tick our creditors. We definitely want our fees and things like that. So tick all your fees. And of course, bonds, if we're doing any bonds, you'll notice them in here. And you can see down the bottom, always check the selections when you're doing disbursements because it'll give you a preview. And then the next screen, this will actually tell us as well what agency fees we're collecting. I have a couple of management fees there, residential and commercial, and of course, what reports is it going to produce and that sort of stuff. So I'll disperse that and then we'll go through a little list. So that's any questions about disbursements, please do yell out. It is a big part, obviously, of getting towards that close a month. Just received a few emails, all my owner statements coming to me, and that's basically done. So just back over to our presentation now, because there is this point here, and then we'll do the close a month. And we'll walk through that and we'll just reiterate a few little things around that. I always like to just go through this because end of month always is a really stressful time. It's important really to just think about, you know, the act of closing the month in Cloud is essentially it's a reconciliation with a tick box. So really, really simple. But the important stuff is all making sure that we've done everything so that our owner statements, like I said before, all appear correctly. So preparation is key, as with everything. Sometimes a lot more difficult in real estate because we're all so busy. So ensure that all your rent and incoming funds have receipted. So that's your bulk receipting, your manual receipting, any owners that have put money into your account, any miscellaneous funds, make sure you've receipted them. They're all accounted for and identified in that period. Enter and process all your invoices and bills. So that includes your tenant invoices. And again, we'll be receipting them. Actually, tenants, if there's invoices due that you need paid before the close of the month, make sure you do that. And obviously pay those bills on behalf of those owners, if applicable, if there's funds available, or you can part pay in the bills screen as well. Run your daily banking. So for those that are using accepting cash, EFTPOS or cheque in their office, make sure you run that daily banking. We find a lot of the time people do their close of the month and they'll go, oh, I didn't account for that one person that pays by EFTPOS in their office once a fortnight. So it is important to make sure you've done all that part. That is a part of it. Also, we've accounted for all that, the funds that have been manually put into our trust account. Always do a reconciliation, and this is your reconciliation prior to doing our disbursement. So we're going to do a reconciliation. Let's pretend I did one before I did my disbursement before, because that's good practice. And then, of course, we do our disbursement. So this is the last disbursement before we close our month as well. And obviously that's the next step, run our disbursement, and then we can close that month. So closing the month, which is what we're going to do now, it might not be available. I just remember we might pop into another office, but that's okay. Accounts. So you close the month is in your accounts reconciliation. Again, make sure you do your reconciliation before you disperse. Another thing in here, sorry, I didn't mention this in my little checklist. If you do have any deposits, payments, or adjustments that are sitting here and you have received, so maybe you were expecting money to come into your account, but it's not yet in there, so you would leave it, not present it. If it's now showed up in this month, we can present that off. So make sure that you do go through and view that and present them if required, or not if not required. So that's a little tip there as well. You close a month. Let me just move to another office. My apologies. You would have seen that obviously my close a month's grayed out, and that's purely because it's not the first of the next month. So not reports. There we go. We'll find another office that we don't really use that often. So this one here, we'll click close a month. So you will get this message on the first of the following month, or in my example, because I haven't closed my month, which was naughty, I didn't do it. I'll click this little box here. It will say that closing your month will generate and send monthly owner statements if you have that option selected. And then you can change it if you wish to. Continue. Put the correct statement date. So the last statement date that you want on that owner statement, make sure you put that in as well. So that might be the end of the month. I'm going to leave mine for now. Yours, when you're doing it, will say either the first or onwards. So just be aware of that as well. So it will include all transactions, including and up to. A closing statement balance, I'll leave mine obviously for this example. So the closing statement balance is, let me just try and do maths. Okay. I'll just present off all these payments and whatnot. What did I do? There we go, that's better. So we'll just pretend that we've all those payments. Obviously, you're checking your bank balance for real. You're not just putting in a fake number. And a little key there, you're not able to move forward if this doesn't balance, which I actually think personally that's a really good thing, because we're not reconciling with incorrect balances. If, for example, you do, now you would have already be used to adjustments and things like that. If there is a circumstance where you're expecting and you know it's definitely coming, it might be a rent adjustment or something like that, then that would be entered in there as well to continue. But obviously we need to really identify anything like that in the correct area. So I'll close my month in this office. That's all correct. Yep. And obviously I'm closing my last month because I didn't do it yet. So I'm actually closing October. Very, very late, which is a bad practice. But anyway, we go. So the key thing as well, so your disbursement, we'll talk to them just quickly before we wrap up in a sec. Think of any questions as well while I'm talking to this. We'll go through them as well at the end. So what we'll produce, so you might have seen obviously my disbursements. I didn't show you that before, sorry. So when I do a disbursement, those reports will always download to my downloads folder, either on my C drive from Windows or in my MacBook as well. So don't forget the zip file. There'll be 2 files that will download most of the time. So what you're seeing here is my disbursement. So I've got in my disbursement file is my ABA. So remember this is what I would have showed you back when we did our disbursement. ABA is the file we upload to our bank, owner statements as well. The little PDFs that download is any statements to print. So this means any creditors or owners that do not have email addresses and we've set to print. It'll print 1 PDF file, and you'll see obviously I only got 1 here, but it'll have multiple PDF documents in here as well. Reconciliation, so we've got a reconciliation report. And this is what happens, is remember we are closing our month, but we're also reconciling in there. And then of course our close of month report, which will be in here as well. Your close of month statements, all those statements. These are again statements to print. So I can print these out for my owners, and of course all the ones with email addresses, that's all done for you. If you do ever need to, so it's important to, I guess with cloud, everything is saved in Console Cloud forever. You'll never lose it. So while it does download stuff directly to your downloads folder or your local drive, and you can download at any time, any of this information, but just remember it's always backed up in here as well. So you've always got a source of truth in here. So where you find all these documents, you can either use the links up here, or you can go to your accounts and go to reports, and these are all your financial accounting reports, such as end of month, and then obviously in that drop-down list, we've got close of month history. You can see they're all my close of month reports. I can re-download them. And same with reconciliation and of course disbursements. If we accidentally delete the file, we don't have an ABO file, we may want to go back in here and re-download that file as well. If I was doing BPay, there'd be a BPay file, in here as well, but I don't have any BPay payments, so it's not showing this little drop down for BPay. Cool. Where is? Awesome. Well, that's essentially, I've talked your head off for about 30 minutes. So I'll hand it over if there's any other questions. If you don't have any questions, that's completely fine. You're welcome to jump off. The key thing, remember, just to sort of recap, is preparation and just getting everything done with you and your team and making sure that's all ready. And then closing that month is your reconciliation with that tick box. Also, if you do get stuck at any stage, we do have our support teams. They're available via the live chat in your clouds, and also phone if you really need to call. Just be aware, end of month period is quite a busy period for real estates, but also us being in the real estate industry. So it is longer than usual. Call delays as well, so just be aware of that as well. But you're welcome. Also in your help options, so if you do want to refresh on any of the stuff we've learnt today, obviously I'll share this video once the recording's ready online in our Facebook group for Console Cloud users, but also in here under courses, there is an end of month course, so this will open up to Console Nebula, and that's our learning platform, free to all of our cloud users. So you'll notice in here, there's an end of month course in there. And also there is a couple of other support materials. So webinars such as this one to book in at any time. We've got some Q&A webinars and end of month webinars that we put on regularly. So you're welcome to book into those. That's via this link in cloud, and also the knowledge base if you do need help with anything else. All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks again for joining me on a Friday. I know you're all super busy. I hope you all have a great weekend. You're welcome to also, we are running another one of these sessions if you do want to refresh on Monday, just before end of month. Same time, same place. You can use the same link to join as well. It's the same link for this session on Monday as well. Other than that, have an amazing weekend and we will catch you next time.